Hi guys, welcome back to the High Grade Podcast. It's your girl Shinnel.
And Shannel.
And no, we're not joking. So the topic of conversation for today's episode is all about this quote by Jim Rohn. And the quote is, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's a very controversial quote because there are a lot of people who agree with it. And then just doing some sort of research on the internet, there are a lot of people who say, actually, no, it's not 5 people, it's everyone. And then there's some people that just say, well, that quote is utterly stupid.
Yeah.
So today we're here to nitpick and really get down to sort of the bottom of that quote and obviously share our ideas and thinking with you. So I guess, Shan, first things first, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Hit me with it.
So I think that I sit more on the side of believing this quote.
Okay.
I think that I have, in my personal development journey, realised that this quote is quite true.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because the people that you hang around with will determine your beliefs, your attitudes. It will dominate what you talk about, what you think about. And I do believe that if you have people in your circle that you aspire to be, who you want to be like, then you will be more like those people.
I think just adding on to that as well, I mean, you've been here for like 2 days now. You've stayed over at my house just so that we can film all of these podcasts, and you will not stop saying my guy. And every other word that I say is my guy. And that's just been 2 days.
Yeah.
And I think even when it comes down to the most littlest things, like taking on someone's vocabulary or using the words that people say, I think it's human nature where we tend to gel and almost mold into the people that we hang around with, despite us being conscious about it or not. You know, a lot of good habits that you've influenced me to start my own habits, but then equally there's, you know, other friends that I have who have really positive mindsets that I've also taken on board. But equally, I've experienced the complete opposite, where I've had experiences with people where, you know, they haven't necessarily been so positive, or I've acknowledged that they may not necessarily be the right type of people to be around. And, you know, naturally we've distanced and I've had to sort of step away from that sort of environment. And there was a really interesting piece of research that you were telling me about. Share it with our audience.
There is research by social psychologist Dr. McClelland of Harvard, and he says that the people that you habitually associate with determine up to 95% of your success and failures.
I think that's really, really powerful. And I think that also links to the sort of quote. I'm sure a lot of parents may have said it, and it's show me your friend and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of people who are probably going to be watching and thinking, oh my God, who are my 5 friends? What's my average? And I think it's not about determining what your average is. And if you're happy with the 5 friends that you spend the most time with, that's definitely not our intention here. But I think the main thing is being conscious of how you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with. I think we've said time and time again, you know, time is our biggest asset and it's something that we're never going to get back. And I'm all about socializing with intention, and I think a lot of my friends can attest to this, where I'm like the biggest sheg in all of 2020 and 2017, 18, 19 and 20, because I just can't bring myself to just go out all the time, or I'll commit to going out and then I'm like, oh no, I can't go out. And I think that's just because I think I prioritize a lot socializing with intention, and I just want to be able to have control over who I spend my time with and what I spend my time doing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I think I agree, and I just want to reiterate what you said. When this podcast or video is not about telling people ditch your friends, they're not good for you. It's not about that at all. The point that we want to make and to emphasize is just be very, very conscious of how you're spending your time and energy, because it is so important for your development to know where it is going. Mm-hmm. I think I am the same. I'm definitely not the biggest sheg, but maybe that's definitely Shinnel, but I'd probably take second spot in terms of I'm that one end of an extreme where if it doesn't fulfill me, if I don't get value, and again, it's not always about productive and business and blah, blah, it's just about adding value. So if I know I'm going to go out and it's not really going to add value to me, then I probably won't do it unless I want to break and I want to have fun. So it's about having the balance, because we're not robots. Sometimes you do need fun, but again, that would add value to me in that way.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's not always about being around people for the idea of being successful. It's not always geared towards that. But I think not being afraid to lose friends along the way if they are not, you know, adding value to your life, or their friendship is doing more harm than it is doing any good. And I think also just stepping out of your comfort zone and, you know, being open to meeting new people. And I think when I got into property, it kind of blew up for me. I think last year, March, that was when we met. And I'm very grateful that I met you. This is obviously going to be edited out. But yeah, I'm very grateful that I met you. But I think just even sort of venturing out and just meeting new people, particularly in property, where I was basically the dumbest person in the room. Like, I didn't really know anything and I was surrounded by experts. It can almost put you in a very difficult situation where you don't really want to socialize with people just in case you say the wrong thing. But I think it's so important to be around new people, particularly people that you may want to aspire to be like, because that sort of brings out the best in you, and you as a person can then add value. Because if you're around people who you get on with, who you aspire to be like, the vibes are always good.
Yeah.
And when the vibes are good, your energy is always good. And when your energy is good, you have a lot to offer. But then when you look at it on the reverse, so you're with people, they're okay, you know, they're just kind of friends that you chill with, and, you know, while Netflix is on in the background, I would really urge you to just really consider, you know, not saying ditch them, because it's absolutely fine if that's what you want to do with your time. Again, it's not just about always being successful, but I think, you know, just being mindful and being conscious. And I'm definitely not saying have 5 friends and all of these 5 friends be exactly the same, because that's not what you want. You definitely don't want 5 people that all think the same, because then it's 5 of the exact same ideas. And it's okay to have friends that have low aspirations and are happy with how their life are, and also fine to have friends who are striving hard and really want the best from life. And it just also allows us to be exposed to loads of different ideas, but being active in how you construct your social environment, for me, is what is absolutely key. And just valuing your time and how you spend it is like 100% just what I'm all about.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like you said, valuing your time. Time is our most valuable asset. And I think it is really, really important that you recognise that, because time that you spend, you can't get back. So if you're spending time on people that talk negatively and think negatively, subconsciously it is going to rub off on you. You're going to start thinking negatively, acting negatively, adopting bad habits. And I think that sometimes you just have to put yourself first. You have to love yourself more than the environment that you're in, because sometimes your dreams are bigger than your environment.
100%.
And to see that dream fulfilled, you have to leave the environment you're in. And I think if you're surrounded by the right group of people, then the world is really your oyster.
Definitely. And I think, again, like, it's not to say that every interaction I have with my friends has to be a political debate or about how they're going to start their own business or a new entrepreneurial skill that they've learned. It's definitely not that. But I think if the conversations are not intellectually stimulating at any point, then I have to really consider, like, what are we doing here? Because if you're not challenging me as a friend to think differently, you're not asking me these thought-provoking questions, and we're not having these conversations where you challenge me to be better, then what is our friendship based on? And it's not necessarily thought-provoking questions about business. It could literally be anything. But again, it has to be that relationship where you are and we are growing something here. And I'm happy with friends not sharing my passion for self-development. I think that's absolutely fine. But, you know, I would like you to be able to support me. And if you're a friend that can support me, then yeah, you know, I'm happy to have you on my side. But again, it's just being surrounded by the right group of people and being intentional and deliberate with how you are choosing to spend your time, because what you give out is kind of what you get back in return. And so if you're surrounded by people and you're frustrated because of maybe their aspirations, or you're frustrated with their habits or their mindset, that's not going to put you in a good place. You're going to be quite negative, you're going to be quite down, And you're only going to display that outwards in your behaviors, attitudes and mindset. So I think definitely being around people that push you in any way is definitely key. But then I also think people have different tolerances for different people, particularly people that they've known for a longer period of time. And so actually some people remain friends because of how long they've known each other, and I've known you forever and I just can't not have you in my life.
I think you've pretty much summed it up. I think that you don't always, we're not saying if you don't have an intellectual conversation with that person, get rid of them, because that's not it. Sometimes you just want to do nothing, speak about nothing, and just have some positive energy. But I think for me, it's more about having what I call a loser friend, and that's not their lifestyle or their mindset or anything like that, because who am I to say what you should and shouldn't do with your life, but more a loser friend. I mean, if you are forcing me to lose something in any way, then I would clarify you as a loser friend. And it's people like that I definitely will be very, very strict with and say, you can't be in my life, because if you are taking away my success, maybe if you don't cheer for me, if you don't understand that I'm busy, if you are a secret hater, and we all have them.
Everyone's got a friend.
We've all got a friend that's a secret hater, whether you know it or not. Everyone has someone in their life that is a secret hater and may kind of clap in your face and wish failure behind your back. If you're that person, you have to go. If you have kind of no aspirations, I would find it very hard to compensate with you. I think for me, if you're supportive, if you've got my back, if you understand, if I'm doing something and I want it promoted and you promote it and things like that, that is a good friend. That's a real friend, someone that's going to be your cheerleader. But I think it's also expecting these good friends, but also being that good friend, because everyone has an average. So your friend will have an average of 5 and you're going to be in that 5, but are you adding to their life? Are you making sure that you are supporting them and you are being that good friend and you're the good influence and having good stimulating conversations with? So like you said, I think you have to give to receive. If you expect good friends, you need to be that person as well.
And I think it's also important to know that it's not going to happen overnight. So in terms of, you know, if you are on this journey of self-development and it might feel like actually your friends aren't on the same path as you, I think it's important to share this information with them and share what you've learned, and try and take them along the journey with you. And then it's up to you to then make a decision at whatever point you feel necessary. And that decision is, am I going to continue sort of dragging you along, or is it maybe time that I start venturing out? And I think only you can make that decision. And it's just about, again, just want to reiterate how important it is just being conscious of the type of people that you have around you and whether they are adding value to your life. And that could be in any capacity, because someone who makes me laugh and someone who lifts my spirits, that's adding value to my life. And there's friends that I have who are in my average 5 that I don't speak to every day, but I don't need to speak to them every day, because I know that when I call them and I've got a business idea or I've got something on my mind, they're going to level with me and tease out whatever I have in my mind, so that I'll be level headed at the end of that conversation. And I think that is more important than the frequency in which I interact with you. Eventually, if there are differences between you and your friendship group or your friend, naturally, I assume you will drift away, because that's something that I've experienced. And when that drift or when that rift comes, it's almost like you kind of just stop talking, and it's just like natural. And it's not because I love you any less or I don't like you anymore. It's just that, you know, our friendship, I guess, has come full circle, and I'm on my journey and you're on your journey, and maybe along the journey we'll see each other again, but it's not something that we're going to be sharing together. And it's bittersweet, but it's life, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's important that when that does happen, you're not holding on to something that is not good for you. So if you are drifting, I know some people find losing friends really, really hard, and they kind of hold on to something that might not be very good for them, because almost they fear what it's going to be like without that person that they've been friends with for ages. And I think it's just important that you need to love yourself more than you love anything else, because like we've said repeatedly throughout different podcasts, you are the only one that's going to create success in your life, and you can't rely on anyone else for your happiness, for your success, for your aspirations, for anything. You've only got yourself.
Definitely.
So you need to be loving yourself more than you love anyone else, essentially. And I think it's important to spend time with people that you want to become.
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to I think when you get older, sometimes you're just a bit more stubborn and you don't really want to make new friends, and you think, I've got my friends, I don't need any more. Don't be afraid to make new friends. Don't be afraid to reach out to people you've never spoken to before. And do you want to be my friend? Obviously that would be weird, so don't message them and say that, but essentially reach out to the people that you want to become, who you see your life being like, and just form connections, form bonds, form friendships.
Because then your standards increase, don't they? And it's not to say that before they were low, but it's almost like if you want to build wealth and your 5 people around you are not about building wealth, they're about spending, it's going to be harder for you to get into that habit. But then if you kind of still have that group of friends, but you meet people along the way who are about what you're about and want to build wealth, but they've already increase their wealth by 30%, for example, you'll be like, oh my God, like I need to level up, I need to get it together, and
get better.
And it pushes you to just want to elevate yourself and become better. And I think 100% spending time with people who you want to be like is the best, maybe not the best way, but one of the ways you can drive your sort of self-development or personal development journey forward. And I think in this sort of day and age, I think it's quite hard to find people who are truly passionate about wanting to move themselves forward. But also I think there are a lot of people out there who do want to move themselves forward but don't necessarily know how. And I think imagine you're that person out there who doesn't know how. You can very much so build a friendship or seek a friendship from someone who's already sort of fluent with developing themselves, and it can be a mentor-mentee sort of relationship. That doesn't mean it's not a friendship, but it just means you call on them for advice because they've already been through it. And I think accepting that friendships can come in so many different forms, that it's not just, oh, because I've known you since primary school, because I've known you since secondary school, you're my friend. They can come in so many different forms. And I think a true example of that is yourself, because you're 21. Or you've got like friends in property who are probably twice your age.
Yeah, 3 times.
Yeah,
maybe.
3 times your age, but they're equally your friends.
I would still,
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it's being open-minded. I think we're holding ourselves back if we become stubborn and think that these people won't be my friends. Because in property and in other industries, you will find people that in your natural environment, you think, I would never be friends with you. But it's just being open. And these people will teach you so much. And it's about leveling up. If you want to level up, you need to find people that encourage you and inspire you to do so. Don't be closed off to forming friendships you necessarily don't think you would have in your own environment.
Definitely. So I think if you want to sort of leave the viewers or the listeners with one piece of advice about this quote or our outtake on you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, what's the one thing you want to leave them with?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is be conscious. That's it. I want to reiterate, I don't want people to think that after listening to the podcast that we're telling you that you shouldn't spend time with your friends and all the rest of it. We are telling you to be very, very conscious of how you spend your time, because that time you can't get back. So if you're spending your time with someone that brings you down, or who is negative, talks about things you don't agree with, or that's not pushing you, we're not saying get rid of them, but make a conscious decision today to think, do you know what, I'm going to spend a little bit less time with this person and a bit more time with someone who I really, really look up to and I really want to be like. Because people are actually very, very generous with their time, especially in a business environment, or people just like talking about themselves. So if you were to reach out to someone, I'm really inspired by you, can you tell me a little bit more? I can almost guarantee that they will reply and you will form a friendship.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And I think for me, it would be not being afraid to meet new people. Like, I'm someone who's very stuck in my ways. Like, I hate meeting new people. I just think I like what I like. I've got 5 friends. I don't need any more. And that was probably the mindset that I had when I met you. But I
couldn't
think,
resist.
Yeah, but I think just being, I don't want to repeat what you said in terms of being conscious, but I think understanding that how long you've known someone doesn't attest to the amount of value that they add to your friendship. And I think there's a lot of people whose friendships are essentially one-sided, where they give a lot and maybe it's not necessarily returned. And I don't want to sort of put out there that you're in a friendship for a give and receive. But I think in order for a friendship to work, there has to be an element of give and receive. And I think if you're giving a lot, and that could be giving in terms of sharing your ideas or sharing your journey, and they're not hearing it, I think that does more harm than it does any good for you. So being conscious about that and just making deliberate decisions with how you spend your time. So not saying that you can't see them anymore, or you can't spend time with them. Yes, absolutely. But also there's no harm in you being alone and being by yourself, and then taking the time where if you do meet someone, not having that barrier in your head where you're like, I've already got 5 friends, I don't need to speak to you no more, see you later, bye. Just being open to that conversation and just saying, oh yeah, you know, what do you do, and and then not being like forcing it, like, oh okay, so now we've had one conversation, can I have your number and can we be friends? Like what you did to me.
She wishes.
Not just saying, yeah, can we be friends, but just letting it grow like very naturally. And I think where you do let that grow very naturally, it just goes with the saying, birds of a feather flock together. Yeah. And whether that's mindset, behavior, values, beliefs, hobbies that you might have in common, it can be anything. And again, it's not to say I'll ditch all your friends, because that's definitely not what I'm saying. But just be aware that you are a mirror of the people you hang around with. And if you look at your friends and actually you think, I'm not too sure if they're adding value to my life. Again, value can mean anything to anyone. And it's different for everyone. Then I would obviously suggest, again, just being more conscious and making deliberate decisions to construct your social environment. That's what I would say. Actually, I've got one more question for you. As a tip, so now this is not an advice, this is like practical tips. Mm-hmm. If there is someone listening or someone watching and they're like, yeah, this is speaking to me, I have a group of friends and I'm trying to be better, I'm trying to do better, and actually I don't feel like they're supporting me, what's a practical thing that they could do today or tomorrow to start the catalyst to change that? Sorry, I know that's like a really hot topic question or a really difficult question.
So the catalyst to sort of break away from,
maybe not necessarily breaking away, but you know, they've heard our podcast, they've listened, and they're like, yep, I totally agree. What can I do today or tomorrow to begin this process of being more conscious?
I think that it's almost important not to force it too much.
Okay.
Because you may listen to this podcast and then think, yep, I've got a bad friend, let me get rid of them tomorrow, and then regret it. Don't listen to what we're saying and then think, yeah, well, I have to follow what they're saying. Let it happen naturally. I think that if you generally think to yourself you have a negative friend, then make the decision right now to limit how much time you give to them. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that it has to work for you, and I don't think anyone can really give you the answer to that. I think it has to happen naturally, and just make that conscious decision to limit your time with them.
I think for me, I would say just do you. And what I mean by that is you already relating to what we're saying is already one step to this idea of being conscious of who you have around you. And I think if there's nothing wrong with taking the time to just understand what it is that you're trying to do, because remember, this is a journey for you. I don't know, I think it's tough when it comes to friends because there's no rule book and every friendship is different. But yeah, I think just do you, and when you do you because you want to, everything else
it will falls into place. It will make sense. Yeah, it's very hard if you're not in the situation or us reflecting on the situation to give you advice and tips on what to do. We're just doing it based on the experiences that we've had. But like Shinnel said, once you realise what you want from life, everything will fall into place. Who's meant to be will be, who is not meant to be will not be.
That's right. Okay, well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you in our next episode. Bye.
Bye.